What if I told you that 2,000 years ago, a small circle of thinkers cracked the code for unshakable calm, relentless self-mastery, and a life free of regret? And what if the reason you're feeling anxious, scattered, or stuck today is that nobody ever handed you the manual they left behind? Today, that changes. This is Wisdom of the Stoics, and I'm breaking down 12 Stoic principles that, if you put them into practice right now, will reshape the way you think, feel, and live. Stick with me to the end, because Principle 12 is one almost nobody talks about, and it just might be the most powerful of them all. Picture a man who rises before the sun. He doesn't reach for his phone. He doesn't check the news. He sits in silence and braces his mind, not for a perfect day, but for the worst one imaginable. He expects disappointment before lunch. He expects loss before dinner. He expects his plans to collapse. And he's totally at peace with all of it. That man was Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the most powerful empire on earth. He commanded armies, governed tens of millions, and weathered endless war, plague, and betrayal. Yet every morning he opened a private journal and wrote, not about conquest or gold, but about how to be a decent human being. His school of thought, Stoicism. Born in Athens around 300 BC, thanks to a merchant named Zeno of Citium, Stoicism swept across the ancient world and shaped emperors, generals, slaves, and ordinary citizens alike. And this is the remarkable part. It was never meant to gather dust on a philosopher's shelf. It was a field manual for the soul. The Stoics believed you can't dictate what life throws at you, but you can always dictate your response. And in that response, your whole life is written. Let's begin. Principle 1, the dichotomy of control. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Epictetus. This is the cornerstone of the entire Stoic system, and once it really sinks in, half your anxiety will evaporate by tomorrow morning. The Stoics split everything in human experience into two buckets: what's yours to direct, and what's not. Yours to direct, your thoughts, your judgments, your intentions, your effort, your character. Not yours to direct. Everything else. What strangers think of you. The weather. The economy. Whether you land the promotion. Whether your flight gets cancelled. Whether people like your post. Here's where most of us self-destruct. We pour torrents of emotional fuel into trying to steer things that will never be steered. We lie awake replaying someone's offhand comment. We doom-scroll the future. We chew on the past with bitter teeth. The Stoic move? Let it pass. Not because it doesn't matter, but because your suffering over it changes nothing. Your focus on what you can move changes everything. Epictetus, born into slavery, became one of the most celebrated thinkers in history from the harshest possible starting position. No freedom. No fortune. No control over his circumstances. And yet he was, by every account, one of the freest human beings who ever lived, because he understood the only real chains are the ones we forge inside our own minds. Today's practice: grab a piece of paper. Write down 3 things that have been gnawing at you. Next to each one, write, can I actually control this? If the answer is no, let it drift by like a cloud. If the answer is yes, take one concrete action on it in the next 10 minutes. Principle 2, amor fati, love your fate. Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well. Epictetus. This principle goes one step past acceptance. It doesn't just say tolerate what life slings at you. It says embrace it. Amor fati, love of fate. It's possibly the most radical idea in Stoicism, and also the most freeing. Think about the worst chapter of your life. A loss. A failure. A betrayal. A diagnosis. A heartbreak. Whatever it was, it cracked something open in you, didn't it? But look at who it shaped. What did it force you to dig up about yourself? What reserves did it reveal that you had no idea were there? The Stoics weren't sentimental optimists. They knew pain stings. But they understood something most people never learn, that resistance multiplies suffering. Every moment you spend wishing reality was different, you stack extra suffering on top of the real thing. But when you look at every wall, every defeat, every won't, and say, this is exactly what was meant to happen, and I will wield it, something flips. You stop being a casualty of your own story and start being its author. Friedrich Nietzsche, deeply steeped in the Stoic tradition, put it pointedly, that which does not kill me makes me stronger. Amor fati isn't limp surrender. It's ferocious embrace. Principle 3, Memento Mori, remember you will die. Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. Seneca. In ancient Rome, when a general paraded home victorious, he rolled through the city on a gilded chariot while crowds cheered and flowers rained from balconies. And seated beside him in that same chariot sat a slave whose sole job was to lean into the general's ear and repeat, again and again, Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. Not to kill the celebration. Not to be morbid. To keep the man grounded. To remind him that glory is rented, that arrogance kills faster than any arrow, that this moment is precious because it will end. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us behave as though we have forever. We dodge the difficult conversation. We shelve the dream. We say someday to everything that matters and say yes to everything that doesn't. Memento Mori shatters that delusion. It says, you are going to die. Maybe not today. Maybe not for decades. But the clock is ticking. And the real question isn't how much time you have left. It's whether you're actually using the time you have right now. The Stoics never let the thought of death freeze them. They let it sharpen them. It burned away the trivial and left only what was real. Principle 4, the present moment is all you have. Confine yourself to the present. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius scrawled those 4 words into his private journal, a journal he never intended for anyone else to read. Which means he wasn't performing wisdom for an audience. He was living it. Reminding himself, day after day, the past is gone. The future hasn't arrived. This moment, and only this moment, is real. Modern research has finally caught up to what the Stoics knew by feel. Studies show the human mind wanders away from the present for nearly half of every waking hour, drifting into yesterday or tomorrow. And during those drifting hours, people consistently report lower happiness, sharper anxiety, and a thinner sense of meaning. The Stoics didn't need a study. They could feel it in their bones. They knew that the man who tortures himself over yesterday's blunders isn't learning from them. He's punishing himself. And the man who spends today dreading tomorrow never actually inhabits either day. The present moment is where all your power lives. Every choice is made here. Every action is taken here. Every relationship is nurtured here. Your entire life unfolds in the now. And yet most people spend most of their lives anywhere but here. Start small. For the next hour after you finish watching, every time your attention drifts toward worry or regret, gently steer it back. Not with irritation. With curiosity. Like a river finding its banks again after a storm. Principle 5, negative visualization, prepare for the worst. He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. Seneca. I know this one sounds grim, even dark. Stay with me, because this practice, done right, may be the single greatest daily tool for contentment that exists. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. In simple language, regularly imagining things going wrong before they do. Now, before you scroll away, this isn't anxiety. This is inoculation. Here's the difference. Anxiety imagines a bad outcome and spirals into helplessness. Negative visualization imagines a bad outcome, scripts a calm response, and then returns to the present overflowing with gratitude for what you still hold. Picture something you love. Your family. Your health. Your home. Your freedom. Now, gently, not obsessively, picture life without it. Imagine waking up tomorrow and it's gone. Feel that? That little stab you just felt? That's gratitude. Raw, unfiltered, wide-awake gratitude for the things you walk past every single day without noticing. The Stoics used this to make sure nothing precious ever became invisible to them. And when loss actually came, as it always does, they weren't blindsided. They had already made their peace. Principle 6, virtue is the only true good. Wealth is not among the number of good things. Virtue is the only true good. Zeno of Citium. This is one of the toughest Stoic ideas for modern ears, because we live in a culture that broadcasts the opposite every hour of every day. Our world says, success is good. Money is good. Status, fame, beauty, power, those are the goods. Grab them and you'll be happy. The Stoics had a different label for all of that. They called it preferred indifference. Yes, it's better to be healthy than sick. Yes, it's better to be solvent than broke. But none of it, not one piece, is the actual source of a good life. You've seen it with your own eyes, haven't you? People who have everything, the money, the status, the looks, and they are absolutely hollow inside. And you've probably known someone who had almost nothing by worldly standards, and yet they radiated this quality, this rootedness, this warmth, this quiet dignity that pulled everyone in the room toward them. The Stoics would say that person had virtue. And in their system, virtue is the one thing that can never be yanked away from you. It doesn't ride on the market. It doesn't ride on luck. It doesn't ride on anyone else's behavior. The 4 Stoic virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. Build these and you have everything. Lack them and nothing else will fill the gap. Principle 7, the view from above, gain cosmic perspective. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius kept a meditation he returned to again and again. He called it the view from above. When the weight of running an empire threatened to crush him, he would mentally pull back. He would picture himself hovering above Rome, then rising higher and higher, until the whole earth was a pale blue dot suspended in an ocean of black. And then he'd ask himself, how significant is this problem in the sweep of all that space and time? I'm not suggesting your problems don't matter. They do. But most of what we agonize over, the awkward thing we blurted at dinner, the argument we had about nothing, the opinion of someone who won't remember our name in a decade, the view from above just dissolves it. Try it right now. Whatever is eating at you today, zoom out. Your neighborhood. Your country. The planet. The galaxy. A universe 93 billion light-years across that has been running for 13.8 billion years. You are alive on a tiny rock for a brief flicker of cosmic time. And yet here you are, holding the extraordinary gift of awareness, the capacity to love, to build, to choose. That is worth something. And most of your problems, from the view from above, simply vanish. Principle 8, act in accordance with nature. Man is a social animal. He who lives for himself is either a beast or a god. Aristotle, a close cousin to the Stoic view. The Stoics believed that human beings have a nature, a logos, a rational, social, virtuous core. And when we live in tune with that nature, life flows. When we fight it, we suffer. What does in tune with nature actually look like in practice? The Stoics had a clear answer. It means using your rational mind, not your impulses, not your fear, not your ego, to steer your choices. It means recognizing you're part of a wider human community, and your actions ripple outward whether you notice it or not. It means living consistently. Not preaching virtue on Sunday and practicing vice behind closed doors the rest of the week. Remember the moments in your life when you felt most alive, most yourself, most at peace. I'll bet they were moments when you were being honest. Moments when you were helping someone. Moments when you were doing hard, meaningful work without complaint. Moments when you were simply being who you actually are, not auditioning for an audience. Principle 9, the obstacle is the way. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius. This might be the most practically useful idea in the entire Stoic library, and it flips the conventional approach to problems completely on its head. Most people look at obstacles and see a reason to quit. The application got rejected. The relationship ended. The startup tanked. The door slammed shut. The Stoic mind does something entirely different. It looks at the obstacle and asks, what is this teaching me? How can I use this? What is this wall itself pointing me toward? Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before he landed the light bulb. Winston Churchill lost every major race he entered before his finest hour. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job and told she was unfit for the screen. In every case, the obstacle wasn't a detour from the path. The obstacle was the path. The failure forged the person who eventually succeeded. What's standing in your way right now? Really sit with it. And then ask the Stoic question, what if this isn't blocking me? What if this is the way? Principle 10, Sympathia, we are all connected. What injures the hive injures the bee. Marcus Aurelius. A lot of people get Stoicism flat out wrong on this one. They assume it turns you into a cold, emotionless machine who couldn't care less about anyone else. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoics believed fiercely in what they called sympathia, the deep interconnectedness of all things. The idea that you are not an isolated individual duking it out with the world, but a node in a vast web of relationship, responsibility, and mutual obligation. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man alive, wrote over and over about his duty to his subjects, his family, his enemies, even strangers. He understood that his own flourishing was inseparable from the flourishing of the people around him. In a culture that constantly tells us to optimize for ourselves, to be the main character and treat everyone else as the supporting cast, the Stoic vision of sympathia is genuinely revolutionary. It says your neighbor's suffering chips away at you. The stranger struggling on the far side of the planet is not separate from you. To build a genuinely good life is to build it in community, in service, in relationship. The most fulfilled people you know, I would bet almost anything, are not the most isolated. They're the most connected. The most generous. The most genuinely invested in the lives of others. Principle 11, Voluntary discomfort, choose the hard path. Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, is this the condition that I feared? Seneca. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in all of Rome, used to sleep on a hard floor on purpose. He fasted voluntarily. He wore rough clothing in cold weather. He went hungry, not because he had to, but because he chose to. He was testing himself, proving that his sense of well-being didn't rest on comfort, proving he could face hardship with grace. And every time he came through it, he walked away freer, not less comfortable, but less owned by comfort. This is one of the most counterintuitive and most powerful practices a modern person can adopt. We live in the most comfortable era in all of human history. Climate controlled everything. Endless entertainment on demand. Food delivered in minutes. Friction stripped out of nearly every corner of life. And we've never been more anxious, more brittle, more unable to handle a single hard thing. The Stoics understood that comfort pursued without limit turns into a prison, that a person who can't function without air conditioning, without their phone, without their morning coffee, isn't free. They're owned by their creature comforts. Voluntary discomfort breaks that ownership. It says, I'm choosing to be uncomfortable. I'm choosing the cold shower. I'm choosing the hard conversation. I'm choosing the brutal workout, not because I love pain, but because I refuse to be afraid of it. Start small. Tonight, skip one indulgence you'd normally reach for. Tomorrow morning, finish your shower with 30 seconds of cold water. These tiny chosen acts of discomfort build a muscle, and that muscle, over time, becomes unbreakable. Principle 12, Eudaimonia, the flourishing life. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. We've landed. Principle 12. And I saved this one for last because it isn't really a technique. It's not something you do on Tuesdays. It's the destination every other principle has been pointing toward. The ancient Greeks had a word, eudaimonia. It's often translated as happiness, but that translation misses the mark. Happiness suggests a feeling, a mood, something that drifts in and out. Eudaimonia means something much deeper. It means flourishing. The full flowering of your potential as a human being. A life well lived, not by the world's standards, but by the standard of your own highest self. And here's the Stoic secret, the thing that separates this philosophy from every other happiness teaching in history: it doesn't depend on what happens to you. Let me say that again slowly. A flourishing life, in the Stoic view, is available to you right now, regardless of your circumstances, your bank balance, your relationship status, your health, your past, or your future, because eudaimonia isn't built from outside conditions. It's built from inside choices. Specifically, from the steady choice to live with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. To use your mind correctly. To treat others well. To face what comes with grace. To act, always, in line with your deepest values. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, betrayal, and the deaths of his children. Epictetus was born into slavery. Seneca faced execution. And all three, by every account we have, lived with a depth of peace and purpose that most people, even those with every material advantage, never find. Their secret wasn't luck. It wasn't talent. It wasn't circumstances. It was philosophy. The daily, deliberate, disciplined practice of deciding who they would be, no matter what the world threw at them. You have within you right now everything you need to deal with whatever the world can throw at you. Brian Tracy, echoing the Stoic tradition. The Stoics would agree, and they'd add, not only do you have what you need, you have the capacity for something extraordinary. A life so grounded, so purposeful, so free from fear and small suffering that the people around you wonder what your secret is. Now you know. It's 2,000 years old, and it works.